We get everybody's attention. We're a couple of minutes behind. We've had a busy day of committees and people running back and forth. Senator Hodges, would you mind opening up the invocation?
Would you pray with me, please? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day, and thank you for the many other blessings that you've bestowed upon us. Lord, please grant us your guidance and wisdom as we ponder and discuss the issues before us today. Lead us and guide us in all we do. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Representative McDonald, if you want to come forward here. We had meant to have you on yesterday, but it's been confusing. If your chairman wouldn't send me 500 bills, you know, or something. Maybe it was only 38. I'm not sure.
So we're blaming him? Good.
That's right. We had a couple I was blaming for yesterday that didn't even come from him. Anyway, if we get everybody's attention, please keep the noise down and let the governor's floor leader present his bill here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my AKA seatmate at the Georgia Bulldog games and members of the committee, ladies
Look,
and
don't
gentlemen.
drag me into this.
Okay, all right. Starting to get a little help. Today I bring you House Bill 1015 on behalf of Governor Kemp. This is an acceleration of the tax cut that we did back in 2022, thanks to Chairman Blackman and the whole Georgia General Assembly initiated with House Bill 1437. We start out this initiative at an income tax percentage of 5.75 with a goal to get it down to 4.99. Our first mark is, of course, this year in 2024, which is the 5.49, and this bill, HB 1015, takes another 10 basis points, which is about $300 million, down to 5.39. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, that is the bill.
Okay, and summarize on that, and of course, I've served now with three chairmen from the House, Chairman Powell, Chairman Brett Harrell, and now with the distinguished chairman of the House Ways and Means, Shaw Blackman. And we've started at 6, got to 5.75, and of course, as you know, we went to 5.49 as of January 1st, and it's marching down to 4.99. Now, your proposal is to go ahead and take one additional step earlier than that to go from 5.49 to 5.39. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In the Revenue Department, they're ready. They're prepared to implement this upon the signature of the passing out of this committee and signature of the governor.
All right. We've got mic number 4. Is that Senator Beach?
Yeah. Thank you, Representative. How will this budget cut impact How will this cut impact the 25 budget that we just passed out of the House, that you just passed out of the House?
Well, I don't think it's going to affect the budget because we've got the Revenue Department's already ready to implement this. That we've met the physical success markers that were done by OPB, and they're ready to implement this along with the Revenue Department.
So, in your opinion, could we go to 4.99?
We're trying to get there. I mean, I think, we got to take a measured approach to get there, and I think we'll evaluate in the 2025 session how things go this year with revenues of the state. But we've got to take this measured approach.
Well, let me ask you this question. What competitive challenges do you see out there with us being at 5% when we're competing for economic development projects with Tennessee and Texas and Florida that have no income tax?
Well, I think we're going in the right direction. I mean, look where we started and the direction that we're going. We're going down. We're not going up, and we're bringing jobs and businesses to Georgia again. The 10th year in a row to be the best state in the nation to do business. I think that's a success marker. I think let's go in this direction. Let's do this measured approach of 10 more basis points, that $300 million. You got to look, Senator Beach, what we've done over the past 2 years. We've done $1 billion tax, for our citizens. We've done the property tax, and then we did another one last year. So we're doing things to give back to our citizens. This is just another way we're kind of doing it on the front end rather than on the back end. And it's just the success of every committee member here and our General Assembly and the work that we're all doing together.
Well, I would agree with you, because I think that $1 billion property tax we did, I don't think we got enough credit for that. I don't think
Yeah.
the average homeowner even realized it. We'd have been better off cutting it down to taking that $1 billion and cutting the income tax, in my opinion.
Well,
But-
that's
But
why
hopefully
we're-
we can do that. You think we'll see another acceleration next year?
I hope so. I
to
mean,
come down?
it's all, whatever our revenues and, with OPB and the revenue department working together on this, I hope we all can sit here again and because we've got the success markers that we've got to hit, and if we're hitting them, I'd like to take them down. It's going to be all up to us and our revenues that we generate in the state.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator Dolezal, you were blinking and now you're not. Were you still wanting to comment?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Chairman Beach asked, I think, kind of the question I wanted to ask, but thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill. I look forward to voting for it. I think if you remember, the House actually sent us a bill that took us to 4.99 immediately. I think it was when this plan was originally put in place, and it was the Senate that put the throttle in place. I think in retrospect, maybe we probably shouldn't have done that, and we should have gone with the all's instincts originally to take us below 5%. And we probably would have been able to afford it. And then obviously nobody could have predicted the robust success that the state has had. So certainly thank you for bringing this. I do have a question about the fiscal note. And I'm not sure if I can follow up with the department if this is easier. I'm just curious, seemingly the cut, if the economy were growing, the cut's going to cost more money. But I noticed from 25 to 26, the expense of the cut drops by about $50 million. Do you know, is that a signal that they're expecting a downturn in that year, or do you know why that would be?
I do not. We don't have a representative from OPB here. I mean, that's going to be their question, and also talking to the governors, the estimators of where we're going for next year. So I do not know that.
Okay, just one more question. I want to clarify. This is retroactive going back to January 1st.
Yes, sir, it is.
24,
And
correct?
like I said in a statement earlier, the Revenue Department is ready. They have the plan to be able to do this from the January 1st to us, hopefully passing today and on the Senate floor and to the governor's desk.
Great. And maybe to put a finer point on Senator Beach's question, the governor's revenue estimate in the budget that you all have passed and we're meeting on actually just before this meeting, that kind of envisions this passing, I would assume. Is that
Very much so.
accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's in the plan.
To one of those questions there, and I could defer to DOR, but I think the drop you see is probably because this goes back to January 1st, so there's not a lot of it's going to hit into this year. Some of it will get into next year when they actually get the money in their refund.
I was looking at the drop from 25 to 26.
Yeah, and so I think some of 24's expenses will get into 25, which will make it artificially high. But I'm surmising from the dates there, but we can also let them speak to that point as well. Senator Estevez, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question and a comment. For the average taxpayer, what savings will they see?
Well, it's based on their income. I mean, this is an income tax accelerated reduction that we're doing.
Yeah.
I've got Austin Gibbons here with the Revenue Department. He might can answer that question. Austin, if I may ask him.
Austin Gibbons with DOR. I hate to come up to the mic and say I don't have an answer at the moment, but certainly can take a look and get back to you on what that might be.
Okay. I was just curious if there were official estimates on it. The sense that I get is that the average, if an average income earner is making about $58,000 a year in Georgia, which represents about the more than or about 60% of our population, 60% or lower, are making or 60% are making $58,000 or lower, they'd get an average tax cut of about $34. And I think that's important because earlier this week we were talking about property tax cuts, and we kind of wrote off a $25 discount on property taxes. So I point that out because while I appreciate tax cuts, I want to make sure that we're doing stuff for hardworking Georgians that are making, on average, $58,000 or lower, and I want to keep them in mind as we're cutting taxes, making sure that we're cutting taxes in ways that are meaningful to those to the vast majority of Georgians that don't make more than $100,000. Someone who makes $424,000, which I think we can all agree are not that many Georgians, would see a tax cut of $282. So I just wanted to point that out, that while I support lowering taxes to the to the degree we can, let's try to do some meaningful things for those who may not be earning as much as others.
All
I
right,
appreciate that, Senator Esfeld. Any dollar we can give back to these hardworking Georgians, that's our responsibility to do that, Senator. I mean, whether it's $1 or $34, I think that's important.
And there's legislation we're looking at now that could potentially, depending on how it goes, mean a 2/10 difference or another 1/10 difference on another bill, things like that. So it's still in play. Chairman Tiller, did you have a comment? Your light was blinking, then it wasn't. Did your question get answered?
That was a recognition of what's going on in my head. My light was blinking and now it's not.
Was I that good or was I that bad that I confused you?
All right, Senator Chairman Cowsert, you
Thank
were
you, Mr.
next.
Chairman. I love any ideas of reducing our income tax. Particularly us trying to attract businesses here, and knowing that Florida and Tennessee have zero income tax, and many of our neighboring states are even lower than this. I wondered if you might be willing to consider a friendly amendment to do what we should have done years ago and take it all the way to 4.99. Now, I mean, why would we wait and not go ahead and?
Well, I think the measured approach we're taking right now, I would, during this list, I would like to do this the way the governor's office and OPB have approached us with this piece of legislation to bring to y'all today, and evaluate maybe doing that next session. Let's see, this is kind of our first time, we've gone and passed this in 2022. And so this is the first time we've done the reduction, and we saw that we can accelerate it even more, another 10 basis points. So I'd like to give this the test this year and see what we all look, next year and say, hey, let's maybe take it a little bit further. But I'd like to stick to what I brought before you today, Senator Cowsert, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
All right, now you're back blinking now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for bringing the bill. I want to make sure, and you may have said this and I missed it earlier when my light wasn't blinking. The 0.1%, you equate to about 300 million?
Yes, sir.
Is that what
10
your number
basis
is?
points. Yes, sir.
10 basis points. I thought that was just a little bit symmetrical with the fact that we exempt the first 30,000 of income on income tax, right?
I believe that would be correct.
Okay. So I think that's what it is for a family of four. That's what we normally would use. So I was just trying to get back around to, I think the question was asked earlier, what do we think this would be for a family? And if I'm doing the multiplier on that right, it would have to be at least $400, I think, in income tax savings. That could be if you're going to exempt the first 30,000 on a family of four. Do you have reason to dispute
I don't even know
that?
how much I got in my checking account at home. I just keep my wife happy, and she does all our finances. So all this, the
you think
math
this will
stuff
be-
is not my forte.
So you don't have any reason to disagree with my quick
Whatever
back
you
of
say,
the napkin
Mr.
analysis
Chairman,
that
I
this, on a
support
family
you.
of four making over $30,000 would be about $400?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I do. Right now, I'm kind of at his mercy.
All right, Senator Orrock, I believe, was next, and then we got one more, and then we need to keep moving.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would just say, as you look at the analysis by the Fiscal Research Center, it starts with the sentence that HB 1437 and SB 56 established that the existing progressive tax rate system be replaced by the single rate. We're basically moving to flat tax, and I just disagree with that concept. I think that it benefits the well-to-do and does not provide real tax relief to the low and moderate income families. And I support a progressive tax system, not a regressive one. So,
Well, that rate's actually already into effect, so everybody would get something from this rate. Senator Hickman,
sir.
you're next.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being chairman of higher education a few minutes ago. I really
Yeah,
do
he
appreciate
threw
that.
me in and made me chair his meeting today
Yeah,
too, so.
yeah. I'm gonna make a statement, and it's gonna sound a little bit screwy and maybe a little bit, but I do respect the bill, and I definitely support the bill. But in reference to Senator Cowser and respect for Senator Cowser's comment, I wish we would, if we're doing that, if Tennessee and Florida and then Texas is doing that much better than us because they have zero tax rate, I'd like for us to prove that before, because we constantly are quoting that situation, but I think we're only quoting it because they got zero tax. We're still the number one state in the nation to do business, so how can they be doing that much better than us with zero tax? We are the number one state, so I'd like for us to dig into that. I don't know how you dig into it, find out, but if we're gonna quote those type of situations, I'd like to know more about it. Thank you, and I do support the bill.
We'll get that information. It's too complicated for this hour. But, yeah, it's definitely out there. I don't see any other questions. Is there a motion by the committee? We've got a motion, Senator Amatarte, a second by Majority Leader Gooch. Any other discussions? Mike Ford?
Yeah, I know we've got a motion now, but I just want to piggyback a little bit on what Senator Cowsert and Chairman Hickman said also. There's something about going under 5% that I think is just psychologically would help us in economic development. And as I said, that wasn't against the property tax $1 billion. That was a good deal, but I don't think we got the bang for our buck. I don't think a lot of people have even understood that on the property tax. They did on getting the $500 check, but I would have much rather spend $1 billion going to 4.99. I'm just making a comment here, than doing that. I think it would have been a better long-term impact for the hard-working Georgians, like you said. So I just wanted to make that comment. I would hope you'd go back to the governor and we maybe, instead of reducing it by 1.10 on an annual basis, next year come back at 4.99.
Yes, and I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I think we do a bad job sometimes telling our story back to our constituents on the good work that we do, and giving money back to the hardworking Georgians. We got to do a better job too.
I didn't get one phone call thanking me for that property tax
Yes.
deal.
Senator Dolezal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a follow-up to Senator Beach, I wonder maybe to couple that with Senator Estevez's comments, if he would be supportive of moving to 4.99 to make this more than whatever the number was that you quoted. We certainly look forward to working with you and your party on continuing the work that the governor's put before us today and getting this income tax even lower to the point that it is substantial to the constituents you're talking about as well.
Go ahead.
And now, Senator, I look forward to working with you on that. I would add that something like an earned income tax credit would benefit those low-income earners significantly. Part of the reason we probably weren't thanked for some of the tax cuts in the past is that those lower-income earners that would reach out didn't really feel it. So coming up with creative ways to make sure that everyone feels the effects of a tax break are certainly something that my party can support.
All right, we need to move on here because could talk this all day and we got other bills that are not going to get heard if we don't. So we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of this, raise your hand. Okay, and those opposed, raise your hand. We've got 3 in opposition. Your motion carries.
Well,
And
thank you.
tell us who your sponsor is.
Chairman Bo Hatchett, Governor Floyd Bo Hatchett.
All right, we appreciate you being here.
I appreciate y'all seeing me first. I get to go see my daughter play lacrosse in North Gwinnett. Yes.
Let's see, I think our Representative Chair Houston, are you here?
Yes, right here.
I'm going to tell you, if you could come on up, we're going to hear this. We've got some interplays on some other bills,
All right.
and there may be some people that want to add on to your bill.
Okay, well, that's fine.
So we've got to kind of hold at this point, but if you could give us a good summary of the bill.
All right, I bring you House Bill 1197, and House Bill Are
Tell
you
us,
ready?
tell us the LC number you're
The
working off of.
LC number I'm working from is LC 500718.
All right.
Does everybody have a copy?
I do. That's 1-8,
Okay.
correct.
Well, House Bill 1197 would expand the rural zone tax credit program, and many of you might know this is a tax credit program that redoes development in downtowns and towns less than 15,000. I don't know if any of y'all, I know Senator Hickman does, and possibly I know that the appropriations chairman does. I'm looking around who would, represent a town less than 15,000, but there are quite a few of us. And this has been a very successful program. And it started in 2018. And the first part is to extend this tax credit. The second part, some people wanted to bring in historical tax credits for buildings downtown, because a lot of downtowns, they have two-story buildings, and they're turning them into loft apartments, and it's trying to get more people to come downtown and live, and that's the next part of it. And the third part is that DCA and the Department of Revenue would coordinate and share information to set up this private sector participation in the historical reservation tax credit. And there are two parts in this bill that have well, first of all, I'd carried the bill before and I made a mistake, and these tax credits last for 5 years. Well, the way the bill was set up, the way that it terminated, some of the towns did not get to complete their 5 years, and this extends it so they can finish their 5 years. And I think Representative Blake Tillery has the town that would not get their tax credits if this doesn't pass. So that I thought I'd just throw that out to y'all and let y'all know that he. And I'm sorry I did that, but now in this bill, the Department of Community Affairs cannot designate a town for this tax credit after 2027 because the tax credit extends on 2032, and so this keeps it from happening again so we don't catch a town that's in the 5-year process. And if you'll notice, I don't know if you've noticed the fiscal note, it's not expensive. This is one of your least expensive tax credits you can do. And if you've gone to any towns that have participated in this, maybe you've been through Bainbridge, or Perry, Georgia, or Nashville, Georgia, maybe Fitzgerald, that have had an opportunity to use this tax credit, and it's really making a difference, and people are coming back downtown. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, Chairman Albers has got a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Houston, is it true you did not qualify to run for re-election?
And no, I didn't. It's time to go home.
I'm gonna greatly miss having you here, and what a pleasure
Thank you. And
to
I
serve
think
with
I
you.
presented this bill to you one time, I think.
I think you may have. I
Okay.
think you may have. Maybe while you're back here today.
So-
As a bit of history, back in 2017, we formed a special Senate study committee to look at tax credits. This was actually one of the first 5 we measured during that process. We measured both the commercial and the residential. The commercial came back very strong. In fact, a 3.5 to 1 return on investment. And I think a lot of us pointed to some of the big projects. As an example, the JW Marriott and Plant Riverside down in Savannah has a huge win and great return to the state. However, the residential homes did not come back. In fact, it was a very negative ROI to the state. I think it's very similar to a bill we had just a couple of days ago relating to data centers. It's good for the locals, but there's not a payback to the state. In knowing that it's difficult in a smaller town, I get that. But for the state to invest $1 and not get $1 plus back is my concern for that. And pushing something out to 2032, does go against, our typical principles of 5 years in that. So I love the commercial side. I know you've been a champion for both and done some great work, but it has been our experience and studies from the Georgia Fiscal Research Center and Department of Audits that this is not a good return on investment for the state of Georgia.
Well, I don't think that you'll find J.W. Marriott going downtown in a town of 15,000. And this is something I brought for the department, the Rural Development Council. I haven't been a big advocate of historical credits for residential, but I can understand why you want to bring people back downtown, and why you're redoing the building. You might as well go upstairs and and so many of them have to be rented, and people, the housing is a big problem, and this would give people a place to live.
All right, Senator Hickman, you've got a comment.
Thank you, Representative Houston. Kind of follow up. This tax credit applies to provides more than one residential unit for lease.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not a credit for somebody to remodel their house and all.
It's to make
Be a duplex or more.
Duplex or more. So I think that has a lot of credibility. I know in our particular town, I'm sure in your town, even though our town would not qualify for this, I talked to our Downtown Development Authority guy yesterday, and he said we had a building, and I'm very familiar with the building, that's probably 50, 60 years old, that actually was a haunted house for a long time. And they came in and renovated it back, and it now is thriving. So renovation of these old buildings, it does do things, and people want to live back downtown. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this bill.
Thank you.
All right. And let me jump in here because I may not, and this is a little bit not on this subject, but if I hadn't made the point earlier, the House Bill 101 is not going to be heard today. I know I told a few people at the door, we're looking at whether we need to put something else in there as well. So if you're here for 101, we're not going to hear that particular one today. If that makes you not wait around for an hour and don't want to be here, it will be on the agenda on Monday. Okay, Senator Anna Vitarte, our caucus chair. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Senator Gooch.
Number 6. So I think following up with what Senator Albert was talking about, the ROI part on the residential piece, but isn't it true that some of these units are being used for VRBOs and Airbnbs? Am I following that correctly?
I know in our town, some of them are being used for Airbnbs.
But that's not considered commercial, is that?
I have
if it's
no
a
idea.
residential structure?
But one thing too, I don't think we've had this kind, I'm not contradicting you, I think you were talking about these homes that we're doing over for historical homes tax credit. Is that not what you were talking about? And this is more for rental. And
I think my
It's not
point
the
is,
same
we
one.
are
We're
collecting,
just gonna-
I don't know if Senator Albert's study looked at
I don't know.
the hotel motel tax and the transportation fee that we added a few years ago. I mean, we're generating hundreds of millions of dollars from the hotel motel fee for transportation. I was wondering if that fee was incorporated into your study. Just curious.
I would have to pull that back out for you from 2017. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Senator Tillery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairlady Houston. If I'm reading what this appears to do is really just two things, right? It extends that deadline,
it extends the deadline.
and then you put in the definition of historic residential structure. So I went back to look to see, could it be an antebellum house downtown or something? But I don't think it could be, because as it's already been said, it has to have more than one residential unit for lease. It looks like the definition of the historical structure, what it really does, though, is pulls off having to have the two jobs with it. Because obviously, if you're renting a downtown loft, you don't necessarily have to have two jobs. I just want to make sure the committee realizes I think that's the real change there as far as investment in downtown.
The jobs have been removed in this, that's correct. All right, we've got a number of people that want to speak, so we're gonna try to keep moving. We're not gonna vote on this today, so try to keep it to a minute or so, get your comments in. Leanna Rittenhouse, I think with GMA, this is the one you want to speak on, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. So my name is Leona Rittenhouse. I'm with GMA, and we support House Bill 1197. We are very much in support, so we see that this has been proven successful for cities that have taken advantage of this in the past. We would love to see for this to be a tool for cities to use in the future, so we are very supportive of this.
All right, question.
Thank you, Leanna.
Yes.
Don't cities have tools that they can use to incent this, seeing as the benefit is pretty much to the city?
Yes, they do. For those specific tools, I would have to look into that and get back to you.
But wouldn't they be able to use things such as development authorities and a myriad of incentives, and depending on where the town is, it could also be in an opportunity zone. There could be all sorts of other stuff that are out there, but because there's no jobs, which is basically no ROI to the state, the local cities, and in this case maybe even a county, has the options at their disposal, which they use regularly for economic development.
Yes, to my knowledge, but again, I can look that and certainly get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate your comments. Thanks. We've got Jason Ford here. If you want to come up. This is on 1197, right? Go ahead, tell us who you are and who you represent.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Jason Ford. I'm the Economic Community Development Director for the City of Hartwell. Our designation just ended, and we've had an incredibly robust experience with this program. Our downtown is absolutely transformed. This is the number one reason why. I can speak a little bit to the residential question. I don't believe the bill, as I understand it, eliminates the 2-job requirement completely. In commercial districts, that's still a requirement. But if you're transitioning to a residential unit, for example, if I currently own the building and I'm not hiring anyone else, but I do have upstairs space that's undeveloped, I can renovate that and then still take advantage of the investment and the rehabilitation tax credits portion of this. Our designation ended in 2024, or just in January, and we've got more work to do. We ran out of time, and our map that we had to generate 5 or 6 years in advance, the market moved west instead of north. And so just across the road, we had people interested in buildings and redevelopment that they decided not to do because they couldn't take advantage of these tax credits where other people were. And so the residential component I feel is important. I'm very supportive of that because it creates a natural marketplace. In Hartwell, we're 35 minutes from everything. So if we don't have it, we don't get it. So we need people to live in our town and to support these businesses. They've made great investments, and it's an economy of scale. We only have 4,500 people, and being able to live where you work and play is really important for us to keep those dollars. And I also do think the hotel motel tax credit would be beneficial if someone's renovating for VRBO purposes.
And this bill does let you extend for 2 more years. If you
That's right.
would
Selfishly,
approve.
I want to get back in it. We got more work to do, so we want to reapply. But this will be very beneficial to other communities all across the state.
When I looked at the where it's been so far, I think it's been in 11 counties so far of the 100. Now, I know there's all these counties that are eligible on that map, but where it's actually been. But we'll try to ferret that out too. All right, we appreciate your comments. Thank you. I've got Kendrick Ward. Are you the same organization?
I'm with the City of Greensboro.
Okay. Anything, just try not to repeat what's been said, anything new that you can add to the conversation.
So I'm going to reiterate about, you said about opportunity zone and tax credits. I'm also a city of 4,000 people. The rules on tax credits for us as the City of Greensboro were much easier for developers to use and take advantage of. We also expired at the end of December of last year, so I am selfishly wanting it so that we can continue to do our work in downtown. So when it comes to tax credits, this program was a whole lot easier than both the state and federal opportunity zones that we were also a part of.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate your comments. So we will continue this on Monday.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Try to get organized here since I went a little bit out of order. Since the chair ladies last year are here, I want to move her to the front of the line. All right, we've got Representative Crow here. We'll move on to 1092 if you're ready to present. Have we got that in here? I'm sorry, I've got the wrong number here.
1023.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said the wrong one. Were you here just for 101 or?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here, just listening to everything else.
Okay. All right. And you heard we weren't hearing that one today, right? Okay, so Senator Williamson, 1023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm here today to bring for your consideration House Bill 1023 LC 500802S. And quite simply, the state of Georgia, to the best of my knowledge, has always had the same rate for personal income taxes as it does for the business taxes. When we passed House Bill 1437 and that put that flat tax structure in, it got delinked. So this bill simply reinstitutes the longstanding policy that we've had, linking the personal income taxes that's the same as business income taxes. I like to say business because when you use the word corporate, you immediately think of our largest corporations in Georgia who have armies of tax accountants to take care of legally avoiding taxes and structuring their business the most effective way to minimize their tax bills. But the majority of our businesses in Georgia are small businesses, all of which, or 99% of which, are going to be either pass-through entities such as S corporations, LLC, multi-member LLCs, or partnerships. So this bill just simply will, whatever the General Assembly settles out on the personal income tax, that will be our business tax rate as well. I provided the chairman a fiscal note. I hope y'all have it in your packets because I ended up not having a copy of it left in my folder, but happy to answer any. And the other thing it does, and I believe it's section 3, is it extends the due date on or after January the 1st, 2025 for corporate taxpayers to pay their, to finalize their income tax return. And the reason we needed that is our very large businesses do have very complicated tax returns. They can't file their state tax returns till they finish their federal tax returns. This bill just gives them a little bit more breathing room to get it right and do away with so many amended state tax returns. That's been implemented in numerous states now, and Georgia will be just following a national trend in that direction. But I'd be happy to answer any questions from members of the committee.
All right, Senator Hickman's got one, I believe.
Hey, Representative, how you doing, sir? Doing great. Yeah. Did you tell us what the corporation tax rate is now? Did you mention it?
Yes, sir. Right now, through 2023, it was 5.75%. Now, House Bill 1437 we passed 2 years ago, it was automatically going down to 5.49%. And that's where it stands now, absent this extra 10, if you don't do this extra 10 basis points that the governor's bill's proposing in House Bill 1015. If it settles out at 5.39, then that will be our business tax rate if this bill moves forward.
And it would be the same time period as the bill we just passed on individual
Yes, sir,
rate?
it'd be retroactive to January the 1st.
Thank you, sir.
And I will say that I'm personally like the lower personal income tax rate better, but the data we've all seen shows that lowering the corporate rate gets the most economic activity. I wish it was the opposite, but that's just what the data says. So
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The Georgia Public Policy Foundation entered into a joint study with the Buckeye Institute out of Ohio, and they do their deep search and analysis of that indicates that it's much more effective return. And quite simply, I've explained when we get a personal income tax reduction, leave money in that taxpayer's pocket, they might drive down to Florida and spend their dollars at one of the big theme parks in Orlando, but when the business taxes are cut, all those dollars stay in Georgia in the local economy, either to grow the business, increase employees' salaries, but it flows in Georgia. At least the vast majority of it would stay in Georgia.
All right. Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great bill. Chairman Williamson, I appreciate it. And you're so right. So many of us that own small businesses, it's passing through an LLC anyway. So this really directly impacts our individual income no matter what. And knowing that 9 out of 10 jobs are small businesses, I applaud you, and at the appropriate time, I make a motion.
All right, we've got one other comment, or no, we don't have one. He waved off, so time to make the motion if you want to.
Motion to pass House Bill 1023 LC 500802S.
We've got a second from the Majority Leader, Senator Gooch. Any other discussion on this? If not, everyone in support of this, raise your hand. All right, and opposed? We've got 3 opposed. Your motion carries. Who's your sponsor?
I was wondering if the chairman would be interested in helping me.
Sure,
out.
I can get that one for you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks.
Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, we're going to move on to H.R. 96. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Somebody left some glasses, Bruce. Must be Miss Penny's. Thank you all for hearing this. This is on pine trees. This is on tax ad valorem taxes. It's basically when pine trees are harvested, they're going to be reduced to 40%. It's going to cost the state, it's $11 million to make the counties whole if they lose any money on their property taxes with their school systems. It's the only commodity that is taxed. People say, well, they're not paying taxes on their trees. Well, you pay tax on the dirt and the land that it grows on every year in property taxes. And when trees are harvested, typically it's 30 years before they're harvested. And it's, to help the farmers out, and it's to help the landowners. And we all know trees are important to Georgia. It's the #1 industry in the state. Helps our air quality and clean water. And that's basically, it's a constitutional amendment, Mr. Chairman. H.R. 96 is been vetted for 2 years, and we really haven't had anyone to speak out against it. Most people really like this bill.
So if I understand the bill, right now they're paying county taxes. They're not going to pay county taxes
No, they're
anymore.
so they're still paying.
Reduced
property.
at 40%.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
still paying property, but
So
once
then
they
the
harvest them is when they
So
would
the
pay.
county can't afford this tax cut. Is that what we're saying? Because
and
we're
the state's
we're
gonna
saying
reimburse
that
it.
the
Yes, sir.
state's now going to be on the hook
For
to pay
$11 million.
I'm not talking about the amount, but I'm saying the state's going to be on the hook to pay the property taxes for those counties because they can't afford to not get the property taxes, but yet we're shifting it to everybody else. And I guess if it's a constitutional amendment, then is the state forever having to take this obligation on county property taxes?
Well, I guess so.
Okay.
Unless someone wants to change it at a later time.
All right. Senator Hickman.
Representative Williams, thank you for bringing this. First of all, I want to, for the record, say I have never agreed with this tax. I've never agreed with the property tax. To me, and I think you would agree with this, trees are a crop. They are no different from corn,
Cotton,
soybeans, peanuts,
Right.
no different from my cows, no different from my pecan trees.
With the exception, you harvest trees about every 30 years, and cotton and peanuts you harvest every year.
That's right. So we don't pay any tax, any property tax on corn, peanuts, all that. Now, we do pay it on underneath land,
Correct.
just like we do on underneath land that timber's on.
Right.
So to me, this tax makes no sense at all, but I do appreciate you bringing this bill to at least lower the burden on our great working people in the state of Georgia.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This helps
Senator-
out all the trees.
Senator Gooch. Is that you or sorry, that's Senator Dolezal.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this bill. I agree with Senator Hickman halfway. And sell me on the idea, because we're lowering a tax, but then we're paying out of state coffers to pay the counties back for the tax.
Well, it helps the state of Georgia. I mean, it's the #1 industry in the state.
Yeah, I don't
Trees.
disagree with that. I'm just curious why constituents in an area maybe that doesn't have timber should take this on. I'm wondering if you, in the process of drafting this bill, rather than constitutionally requiring the state forever
Right.
to backfill the counties,
Right.
did you consider, would it not be possible to phase that out over 10 years, allow the counties to adjust? Maybe it's 5 years, out of the period of time. It would seem, I guess you're locking it, and then would that fluctuate based on what the ad valorem tax would have been 20 years from now, and the state's going to pay that out? How does that functionally, how does that work?
Well, it's going to be based on 40 cents instead of 100% on it. So once the trees are harvested, that's
Okay,
what it's
so-
going to be based on. But
So it does move with basically the
But I
crop.
want us to maintain something. I mean, trees are important, and
if these farmers are getting this money back, these loggers, and then they can replant. I mean, we need to replant these trees once they're harvested.
I don't disagree with
And it gives us clean air and clean water, and we all need that.
Yeah, I love that you're cutting the tax. I'm just curious about however Senator Cowser said, putting the burden on the state in perpetuity as opposed to maybe splitting it with the counties or something like that, as opposed to maybe what you had before you. So in other words, take the burden off of the farmer, the tree farmer.
Correct.
But not place that burden on the state forever would be something I would just wonder if did you think about that in the process? And
Andres, would you like to comment?
Yeah.
Sure.
Andresville, GFA, Georgia Forestry.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Andres Villegas with the Georgia Forestry Association. And yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, we did think about that when we were putting this together. One of the big challenges that we had was making sure that we were trying to keep our communities whole in the rural areas where we operate. And so a lot of our members, timberland owners, as well as loggers, mill operators, their wives, their children are part of the local school systems or whatever it may be, and they wanted to make sure. So this is a part of us trying to keep our communities whole. The other thing is, quite frankly, there was some concern from counties if the reimbursement wasn't there for their support for the bill too as well. As you know, I think one of the things, speaking directly to why do the taxpayers of Georgia have to absorb this in urban areas that aren't benefiting from timber, and the fact is they do benefit from it. Every year we plant 200 to 300 million trees a year. That produces enough oxygen for 400 to 600 million people in this country, more than the population of the country. You aren't paying for the air you breathe, but that landowner had to pay to get that tree in the ground. So that air is free, essentially. 60% of the water we drink, especially in North Georgia, is filtered through forest. That's saving communities from having to do a more intensive, more expensive water treatment filtration systems.
I think you're missing the argument. We can talk about how great trees are, and
Yes,
trees
sir.
are great.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
But the argument is, should other taxpayers pay the county property taxes that are owed? I mean, we're dropping their property taxes and telling the other counties, but you've got to pay these property taxes. I think that's what the argument really is
I would
here.
vote for the bill in a heartbeat if it had a phase out, or some sort of split with the counties or something like that. I'm supportive of your
Yes, sir.
industry. I think everybody in here is as well. I just worry about changing the constitution of the state to force an annual appropriation from the state budget out to these counties that, so that's my only concern with your bill.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I understand. And
All right.
if I can have one point of clarification.
One more, yeah.
The only point of clarification is that this is only ad valorem on the timber tax, not on the land itself. So the ad valorem that's lost is only on the timber that's taxed. Obviously, the only thing we tax in terms of a crop at 100% a year in this state. So.
All right, well, thank you for your comments. We can,
Yes, thank you.
you go ahead and be excused unless there's something else there. Senator Tillery?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions sort of in that same vein. The first is, Representative Williams, do you mind just walking me through how you call it timber tax, I think some people call it severance tax, how that is charged, collected, billed, et cetera?
Well, when there's a number, I can't remember what the code is, when a logger or producer, when he cuts timber, he has to pay that tax.
So the logger goes to
The logger, the landowner, or whomever.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah. Well, when the trees are cut, someone has to pay that tax.
Right. That's what
And
I'm
it's
asking
typically
you.
the landowner who's paying it, and he's selling it to the logger.
That's what I'm asking you. So somebody comes and cuts the tree.
Right.
I'm just asking you the process.
You know the process. I mean, you're in Vidalia. How many trees? Y'all have a ton of trees down there. I mean, there's a, I'm not being.
Let's keep
serious.
order here.
I'm being 100% honest with you. Can you walk me through, like, somebody cuts
Yeah,
a tree?
I need Andres to explain this, because I've had some trees cut before, and we had to pay taxes on them.
Yes, sir. That's a very good question. So when you harvest timber, the logger or the wood dealer, whoever's processing it, has to fill out a PT 283 form. That goes to the local, to the county. The county then calculates based on the volume that's reported of the value.
That's what I'm wondering. So walk me through that. The
Sure.
PT 283, the logger doesn't just say I cut 12 trees.
That's
he
right.
says he has to know some number. What is?
That's
how
right.
do
So
you
it's
get
based
to
off of volume, and that volume is based off of the scale tickets.
So
that go.
So the logger loads his truck, goes
That's
to
right.
the mill.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that scale ticket then is used to backtrack back to the volume of timber that was harvested.
Okay.
Then there's some DOR tables that determine the value of that per ton of timber, and then that's what the tax that the landowner has to pay is based off of that in the millage rate.
So the mill figures that ticket
That's right.
and then gives that ticket to,
The ticket goes to three people. It goes to the wood dealer, it goes to the landowner, and then the mill keeps a copy of that. And
Okay.
so, for example, when we investigate timber theft and things of that nature, that's how we track back how much volume went across the scales, and if that matches roughly what the timber crews before it was harvested, they would try and those should be relatively close.
is there any requirement that, I'm trying to walk through, I mean, luckily we're dealing in a business where a lot of the people are honest. But what requires the landowner to take that, you said it's a PT
283.
83?
Yes, sir.
What makes them report that to the county?
It's a legal requirement.
I know that, but I mean,
Audits.
so is not speeding, but.
Yeah, and that, no, so there's that, but also the fact that that's how the landowner gets paid, and so not on the PT 283 form, but on the scale tickets that came across. Typically, there's different ways to buy timber. You can do lump sum, but this is one way that they get paid is on the scale tickets that get across. Also, that's how the logger gets paid. So there's a lot of transaction here, paperwork, if you will, that's tracking the volume, and that's how the different people know what to get paid.
Can I keep going, Mr. Chairman? I'm trying to figure out, so I got the PT 283, but I'm trying to figure out if, I get it that the mill knows, I get it that the logger knows, I get it that the property owner knows. I'm trying to figure out how the county knows.
They're usually well. So that's a good question. So when a logger is going to harvest, by law, this is a law that you helped us pass a few years ago. This body helped us pass a few years ago. They have to notify the county that they're going to harvest, and so they're going to harvest 100 acres on your property. Before they get there, they have to put in a timber harvest notification.
Okay.
That's now it used to be on a county by county basis. We worked with ACCG to change that. Now it's being housed by the state at the Georgia Forestry Commission, and the commission, there's a one-stop shop. The logger, no matter where they're at in the state, registers that I'm coming to harvest on Senator Tillery's property. And then that's how the county knows that harvest took place. Some counties are advanced too as well, and they'll go through and do a GIS, basically a process where they're looking at all the harvests that took place over the past year at their county, and do an audit basically to make sure that everyone was truthful in terms of submitting those notifications.
So the county knows somebody came, so then the county just knows we need to be expecting a PT
They know,
283.
yes, sir, that's right.
They don't, because they obviously, just because you came out there, they won't know the volume.
That's right, yes, sir.
So we tried to centralize that a few years ago, really to help the industry.
That's exactly right, yes, sir.
And we also took and tried to consolidate bonds and say, hey, listen, let's do something with bonding to help the industry.
That's right, yes, sir. You remember that?
So I'm carrying you that we've helped the industry several times over the past year, which leads me to this question. If I'm reading line 25 right, the General Assembly shall annually appropriate.
Yes, sir.
We will be in a position, bound by the Constitution now, that we have to annually appropriate back out to each county, municipality, and school district, essentially the ad valorem lost in severance.
That 60%, sorry, yeah, that 60%. That 60% loss that we're reducing here would be what 98.5% of that would be
Sixty-eight.
reappropriated.
There's a lot of numbers flying around.
Yes, sir, that's
60%
right.
off, but there's not going to be any charge. Are we still going to charge a severance tax?
Yes, sir. 40%.
So you're going to levy it at 40,
Yes, sir.
as though it's a.
Like all other real property. So this gets us parity with all other real property in the state. Timber is the only piece of property in this entire state that pays on 100% of its value.
And when we levy those other taxes at 40% instead of 100%, do we reimburse that from the state?
We haven't, but we do it with the Forest Land Protection Act. And so a lot of
We
this.
reimburse it up to 40, though. We still do it at 40, right?
Yes, sir. That's right. Yeah. Millage is based on 40% of value.
Right.
And
That I see where you're going, and I feel like we have helped the industry a lot. I'm not trying to hurt the industry in this, but I do have a lot of heartburn with putting in the Constitution that we're going to annually appropriate something.
Sure, yes, sir.
That's where I am. There is something that we may talk about later to see where the rest of where the rest of the committee is, where I think I could feel better about it, and I may bring that depending on where the committee moves.
I said we've done it before, and this is as much about sustaining our land and our landowners, and that's something that we can't get back. And so once it's paved over, it's gone, and that's all these policies have always been focused on that since the 90s of sustaining the farmer and the landowner.
Well, that's good, Matt.
Yes,
That's
sir.
actually where my amendment goes. I want to protect the land too. And one of the things I'm concerned about is with CUVA, what we've allowed is a breach by solar that lets solar, when solar is brought onto your forest land or to ag land, especially in my neck of the woods, they don't have to pay the full breach. And so what I would like to do at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, is offer an amendment. I think it's in everybody's file. Again, to protect the land, like I know GFA and others are trying to do, that says at least if we're gonna do this, which I don't feel 100% comfortable with, I would like to include an amendment that says that essentially, you'll see at line 19 and 20 of the amendment in your file, that a breach of CUVA would include using property for a solar generation facility. That's for sale or lease.
I'm trying to go into order here. I'm not sure who was next. I'll start with Senator Eccles. I believe you're up.
Thank you. So I'm trying to understand, and in here we compare what we do to what other people are doing and how we're doing things better or how we need to improve. What are the other states that our growers are competing against? What are the other states around us doing?
I'm glad you asked. Our harvest tax equates to $3 per acre, where Tennessee and Florida have no harvest tax. South Carolina has 36 cents per acre harvest tax. Alabama is only 50 cents per acre per year, and we're at $3. Thank you. Good question.
Senator Estevez.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. So as far as I understand the desire, and I agree with the desire to put this in parity with all the other crops.
Right.
As far as the appropriations, I understand the hit to counties, but if the intent is truly to put it in line with everything else, then why not just do it without the state subsidizing that hit?
I think that was to get a buy-in from ACCG and from the counties, because they were really, worried about what it might hit some of the big, large land-producing counties. It might affect their property taxes and their schools and whatnot. So I think that was the reason for that.
If I could add to that question,
please.
Answer if we were really going to parity with cotton, peanuts, all the other crops would be at zero. They pay zero. Timber pays 100, and all other real property is 40%. So we're asking to be treated like all other real property here, and we felt zero was just too aggressive. But that's where we should be, and if you look at it from a policy perspective.
And again, I think the other issue is, not so much level you're at, but should the other counties then pay their property taxes since they can't afford this to happen? Senator Cowser, I think you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so I remember vaguely some of the breaks we've given the timber industry. Are you saying that on the property tax before the timber's harvested, it's only taxed at 40% of the value?
That's right, yes, sir.
And what happens to other farmland? If I'm growing soybeans or something, do I get taxed at 40% of the value?
Most land in this, most farmland and forest land in the state is in the CUVA or FLIPA programs, and so that lowers it even further from that. But if you're outside of the CUVA and FLIPA program, you're paying 40% of your value times your millage. That's what your ad valorem on a yearly basis is.
And other properties, if it's a building of some sort, are paying 100% of the appraised value, or being taxed at that amount?
I believe buildings are all at 40%. Like I said, the only thing in the entire state, the only piece of property, a boat, a plane, a land, or whatever, the only thing that pays 100% is timber. Now, not timber land, timber, the property, the crop itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, when you sell it, but a lot of stuff we sell, we pay 100%. Got Senator Tillery real quick here.
And again, just not trying to beat a dead horse, but when you cut timber, you also only pay but you pay capital gains, right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And when you turn in your ordinary crops, you pay ordinary income tax.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unless it's cash crops.
So I think there's a difference there too. So.
All right, Senator Ambitarte, I believe you were next.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a brief comment. I got to go to transportation. Chairman Williams, I support your bill. Hope it passes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Senator Albers. And I'm gonna have to say, we've lost so many people to transportation, we're past our hour. We're gonna carry this over to the next meeting, but Senator Albers, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Williams, and I think everybody's agreeing that perhaps there's not parity here. Right. And I agree with that. I have a big problem with us picking winners and losers and telling the rest of the state they have to pay for that. I'd like to see an analysis of where all this is today and what impact it would be and why they can or cannot afford it before we would go to that level. I think that the math would be very helpful for all of us. But I have a friend who has a Christmas tree farm. And I said, gosh, why do you have a Christmas tree farm? He goes, best tax shelter you'll ever have in your life. And he went through and explained to me all the way he depreciates every single year because Christmas trees take somewhere between 5 and 10 years to grow. And the way it works, it is the best tax benefit he's got, and he uses it as a tax shelter. Plus, he gets to use all the depreciation. There's a reforesting thing. He goes, it is blissful. He did it intentionally just to help out with his other business and taxes. So with those kind of things in mind and not having the math behind the why, I think we got to do a little bit more homework to show where and why, to have a good, compelling case. I agree with you, the parity is not there. I think that there's an incomplete equation here.
Well, just remember, it takes 30 years to harvest pine trees, not 5 like the Christmas trees.
All right,
So
last
that's important to remember.
comment, Chairman Tillery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want the association and Representative Chairman Williams to know that if you take my solar amendment, I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Let me see it, Blake.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We've got one more issue in the folder. That was Representative Newton has a 971. There was a question from DOR, and I talked with them myself. We can if we need to. The answer I got was that it is there on the individual tax return, which is confidential information. So you would know on that, if you went to that individual tax return, whether it was there or not, but that there's no aggregate list kept. And so I feel fairly comfortable that it's confidential information. But anyway, I wanted to give you another opportunity.
No, I appreciate that.
Will of the
Chairman,
committee, and don't talk too long, or you might lose a quorum.
I might just leave it at that. That is a bill that helps people to protect themselves and their families, but do it in a safe and responsible way, using their tax credit to get either a safe place to put the gun and keep it readily accessible, or to get trained to use it properly and safely. So I hope it's something. I think we have gone as far as we can go to make sure that there's no list being promulgated and shared or anything like that. We did come with a conflict with the fact that we want to have a cap on all our tax breaks so we know how much we're obligating the state to. So that requires some pre-approval, and then we need to know that people aren't getting it year after year after year, but it shows up in your, like you say, in your own personal tax return is where that is, and those are the most protected in the
All
state.
right. Senator Estevez.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I want to make a motion.
I don't see any other comments, so we can if you want to.
I'd like to make a motion to do pass HB 971, LC 500789S.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, opposed. We've got one opposed. Your motion carries, and we'll get with you on the sponsor.
Thank you, sir. And
All
thank
right.
you, committee.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.